Hello and welcome to Reading Central Library, and more particularly the Local Studies collection. My name's Katie Amos and I'm the Local Studies lead for Reading Library, which basically means I look after all the local history and I'm their local history specialist. Now, normally in September for the Heritage Open Days, I'd be running the Behind the Bookshelves tour, where we take you around bits of the library you wouldn't normally get to see and look at some of the gems that we have in our collection. That's not going to be possible this year, so we've gone modern, we've gone digital, and we're doing it online for you instead. So sit back and enjoy. Right, so the first item we have for you is John Blagraves' mathematical jewel. John Blagrave was born in Reading in the 1560s and he died in 1611, and you can actually see his memorial in St Lawrence's Church just up the road from here. The mathematical jewel was the first and best known of his works, and he was a mathematician, geographer, land surveyor and instrument maker, and the book covers a whole variety of topics including cosmography, astronomy, navigation, all sorts of things, but basically it's a how-to book in building your own astrolabe. Now, an astrolabe is a 2D instrument for the celestial sphere. So if you like, it's a how-to book, one of the first ever books, if you like, for building things, a dummy's guide to. And I have actually seen evidence online that that's what one chap actually did, try and do what it says and follow the instructions. So it obviously was a practical book to use. Okay, so the next item we have is also from our Strong Room collection, and it jumps us forward about 350 years in history, and it's a set of photographs recording the devastation caused by the 1943 bombing raid in Reading. On the 10th of February 1943, a Dornier bomber came over and dropped 4 bombs on his way across the town, and rather sadly it killed 41 people, 29 of whom were in the People's Pantry, which is more or less the back of Marks and Spencer's today. And the photographs that you'll see here record the just sheer devastation that was caused to the buildings right through the town. And they're accompanied by a little image showing a map of which way the photograph was taken, because obviously the landmarks have disappeared under the effect of the bomb. So it's just amazing to see and to try and find the landmarks that you recognise in the town today. If you actually go and have a look at St Lawrence's Church, you can still see some shrapnel marks on the church tower, and next door on Blandy and Blandy's solicitors you'll find a memorial to some of the victims of that bombing raid. Right, next up from our newspaper room we have the first ever Reading newspaper. It's the Reading Mercury from July 1723. As you'll see, it looks a bit different from today's modern papers. No illustrations, no photographs, maybe a few adverts, news from across the county and across the country. But what I'd particularly like to show you is this column here, looking at causes of death. Now, we're used to newspapers recording, murders, crimes, all of that sort of thing, but this includes some causes of death that perhaps aren't familiar to people today. They include chin cough. Apparently that's an old-fashioned term for what we today call whooping cough. You also have chrisms. Now, this one I definitely had to look up. It's to do with the death of a child within a month of their baptism. When they were baptised, a cloth is placed on their forehead, which is called a chrism cloth. And when they died within a month of their baptism, the cloth would then be used as part of their shroud, hence the name. We also have Tissick, more commonly known as consumption or TB. And finally this one, which appears to be a very random name, horseshoe head. This is actually inflammation of an infant's brain. There is actually an alternative term as well for a similar disease as well, but rather unusual and quite curious to see in a newspaper. Now, the Reading Mercury was printed by William Carnan, and after his death John Newbery took over. Now, I believe John Newbery is a distant relation of Arthur Newbery, whose park bears that name up in Tilehurst. Now, John Newbery married William Carnan's widow, and the paper continued going from strength to strength under his management. So the paper actually continued publication until 1987, when that ceased, and the only paper we have in the town today is obviously just the Reading Chronicle. Our next item is from our reserve collection, and it's where we keep a lot of our serials and periodicals, and I've chosen to show you the September 1980 Hexagon Diary, which, as you'll see, contains a wide variety of performers, everything from professional wrestling to a Welsh male voice choir to, would you believe, America's Wonder Woman, Linda Carter. I have no idea what she did in her show, but here she is performing at Reading's very own Hexagon Theatre. And also quite interesting to note are the prices, the ticket prices. So for a top flight act today, you're looking at paying £30, maybe even £40. Back in 1980, £3.50, £4.50 would get you a really decent seat. The library has quite an extensive collection of maps, and I've chosen two for you to have a look at today. First up is the 1802 Charles Coates map, also known by the cartographer's name of Charles Tomkins. Now, Charles Coates was a local lad, but actually became a vicar down in Dorset, but never lost his love of local history, and the map was actually produced for a book that he wrote, The History and Antiquities of Reading, and it's fascinating to look through. So there's all sorts of different landmarks, some old, some familiar, some not so familiar, but it's a lovely map to have a look at, and as I say, dates from 1802. Right, the other map I've got for you is an Ordnance Survey map from 1879, and this comes from Ordnance Survey's 1 to 500 series and shows the town in incredible detail, which is why, if it's not too sad to say so, it's probably one of my favourite maps. You can see all sorts of little details. Back in that time, there were a number of little roads, little courtyards, little streets, and they don't show up on the larger maps like the 25-inch that the Ordnance Survey produced. So this one, you can really see in depth. You've got the properties, you've got the gardens, you've got the roads, pathways, all sorts of things. I couldn't swear to how accurate it was in terms of what the gardens looked like and where the trees were placed, but in terms of finding buildings, it's really, really useful map for us. The last item we're going to show you is the Reading Street Directories. These live in our glass cases up on the second floor, and we're happy to unlock those and get them out for you. They're incredibly useful. I describe them usually as a cross between a Yellow Pages and an electoral roll, in that they have various different sections. You have an alphabetical listing of street, and within the street you have the house number, and for each property you have one resident listed. So they're very useful in tracing not only the history of people, but the history of the properties as well. You've also got a principal residence section. So if you have a relative who lived in Reading but you don't know where they lived, try looking for them in that particular section because everybody is listed alphabetically. Then you have a listing of trades. So if you're interested in a particular pub or a particular business of some sort, you can find them listed in there. And then it also includes a list of local villages, not in quite so much detail as Reading Town Centre itself, but nonetheless useful. So it comes in handy in all sorts of ways, and this particular one's got some lovely adverts in it as well for various businesses in the town. So for house histories, if you've been watching House Through Time with David Olusoga, they're one of the sources that he would have used in putting together his histories. If you're interested in family history, so inspired by Who Do You Think You Are, again, very useful for that. Or just for any other purpose that you can think of. They're really interesting, and they date in this format from around about the mid-1870s and go right up to 1976. Right, I hope you found at least something of interest in that for you today. I've just got a few thank yous. First of all to Simon Smith, our library manager, and all the rest of the library staff here who are doing really well in some tricky times. And if you ever want to look a little bit further or have any further queries about what the library has to offer, then do go to the library's website. That's www.reading.gov.uk/libraries, and there you can find the library online catalogue, you can find a donate button, and you can also contact us via email with any further queries that you may have, and we'll be happy to help in whatever way we can. Thank you very much.